Okay, so the year is 1930. The US is going through the worst economic period of all time. And somewhere in Nebraska, some baby's born. Don't mind him, but he might just be about to become the greatest investor of all time. For the time being, he's just selling gum at school. Oh, and he's also selling coke to the neighborhood. Bro, not that kind of coke, he's literally 6 years old. His grandpa owns a corner store, so he's just selling some of the bottles door to door. Young Warren is really grinding out this business. Yo, wanna go to the movies later?
No!
No movies!
I'm locked in. I'm in the trenches.
I'm getting rich.
He's now offering a bunch more products like, I don't know, magazines and toilet paper. He grinded out this side hustle for 5 years, and on the grand age of 11 years old, he decided to gather all his savings and invest it all into a local oil and gas company. He bought 3 shares, valued at $38.25. Then, they skyrocketed in price and made Warren Buffett a millionaire at just 11 years old. Nah, never mind, actually they fell a lot. Now the shares are worth just $27. But Warren Buffett, amidst the chaos, in his determined 11-year-old mind, he held the line. He remembered that sudden emotions lack logic. He realized that down isn't permanent. He was asked by the market, when your crops go dry, will you sell your land? Or will you sow more seeds, knowing that the harvest will always return? He just brushed it off and held the stock. His paper hands soon turned to diamond hands when the stock rose back to $40, where he eventually sold. Unfortunately, young Warren Buffett forgot the ancient teachings of Sun Tzu. Mastery lies in silence. The market cannot strike what it cannot read. The stocks kept going up after he sold, and they continued to go up to like $200. This taught Warren Buffett a very important lesson. You either ascend to the moon or vanish with the dust. There is no honor in the trembling hand that sells in between. My guy is still 11 years old, by the way, and he's already gambling on the stock market. What a fucking legend. Anyways, a couple years later, his father was elected to serve as a congressman in Washington. So, Warren and his family moved to DC. Here, Warren got his first real job, delivering newspapers for the Washington Post. He got a second job, delivering newspapers for one of their competitors, the Times Herald. Now, he was delivering 2 papers to each house at once, making double the bank. Now he was cooking for real. At just 14 years old, he was making $180 a month, which is the equivalent of $3,000 in today's money. From then on, Buffett kept hustling. He bought a pinball machine and started learning how to make passive income. He then started reselling pinball machines to other stores in the neighborhood and made some serious bank doing that. Then, like any normal 15-year-old kid, he went out and bought a fucking farm in the middle of Nebraska, a 40-acre plot of land that he rented out to local farmers. You know, the usual 15-year-old kid stuff. Couple years go by and finally Warren Buffett is finishing high school. He wants to start a full-time career as a stockbroker. However, his dad wanted him to go to college. He went to the University of Pennsylvania and was later rejected by Harvard when he wanted to do his master's degree there. He went to Columbia to do it instead. There, he met this guy who was a teacher there. You might think he's just a sweet-looking old guy, but don't let that deceive you. He's a ruthless investor that literally created the entire philosophy of value investing. He wrote a book you might recognize, The Intelligent Investor. He was one of the few who not only survived the Great Depression, but actually managed to make a fortune during the crisis. And Warren Buffett was just chilling with him in the class. They would later become really close, and Warren Buffett would go on to say that he was one of the most influential men in his life after his father. Legend says Warren Buffett was one of the top students at his class, and he would find stocks so undervalued that even Benjamin Graham himself thought these stocks were fake. Anyways, after finishing his master's degree, he got offered a job at Graham's investing firm in New York. And of course, Warren Buffett agreed. Here, he learned all the sauce. How to tell what a good and bad company is, how to decide if a stock is undervalued or overvalued, and other nerdy analysis and stuff like that, you know. By 1956, however, Graham decided to retire and shut down the investment firm. But to Warren Buffett, it didn't matter anymore. He now had a nice 175 grand to his name, so he decided to continue on his own, doing exactly what he did at Graham's company, but this time with his own company. He invested all of his money, together with 100 grand from his friends and family, and came up with this genius strategy. He would find terrible performing companies with basically worthless stocks, buying them for literal pennies, like the most garbage out there. This is what he described as the cigar butt method. Imagine you were picking used cigarettes off the street. Most of them still had about a puff in them, right? And you could enjoy that puff basically for free. Well, that's what Warren Buffett was looking for. Buying shit stocks that really couldn't go down more since they were trash on the street literally, but still had that one puff in them that he could get for free, exploiting that stock for its one last puff. This strategy worked so well that in only 6 years of running his investment firm, he ran up the 100 grand from his friends and family all the way up to over $7 million. And now Warren Buffett was truly balling. He had more money than he knew what to do with, but he wasn't satisfied. He logged the fuck in, and just 4 years later, he ran up the digits to over $44 million. But Like a ship in the middle of the ocean, Warren Buffett did not change course, because he was still far from his destination. Just 3 years later, he was managing over $100 million, which is over $1 billion in today's money, at just 39 years old. However, he could feel the tide was turning. Warren Buffett had this gut feeling that his cigar butt method was starting to fall off. So, while at the peak of the mountain, enjoying all the fruits of his labor, he decided to end his business, pay out everyone, and just do nothing. Probably went out and took a walk in the park and just pondered into a lake, staring into the distance. He's not relaxing. This is merely a transition, a loading screen before he embarks upon his next endeavor as a man. Now Mother Nature is confused. Is he at peace, or is he plotting another strategy? He asserts dominance with a nod of approval over the lake and returned home to the lab. Kept searching for some riskier trades with his own money, but it was getting harder and harder to find great opportunities in such an overvalued market. After a long search, he found a struggling textile factory by the name of Berkshire Hathaway. Its stocks were trading at only $7. Naturally, he bought a bunch of stocks and waited. Some time went by, and Warren Buffett was arranging a deal with the owner of the company to sell his shares for $11.50. However, the owner was probably one of them with the long noses and tried to cheat Warren by buying the shares for $11.37 instead of the agreed price. Even though it was a tiny difference, this infuriated Warren. It hurt his ego, his pride. He felt he couldn't let that slide, or it would show weakness to the rest of his enemies. He remembered the ancient teachings of Sun Tzu again. To let disrespect pass unchallenged is to invite more. So, as the big money man that Warren Buffett was, he bought the entire company and fired the guy. He had gotten his revenge. But at what cost? Now, he owned a declining textile company with no management. He decided, alright, fuck it, we ball. He took inspiration from DJ Khaled.
Some people be like, yo, Khaled, I don't see you lose weight, because I don't lose. You know what I'm saying? All I do is win.
He can't take the L on Berkshire Hathaway, so I'll just transform the entire company, remove it from the textile industry, turn it into my new investment firm, probably thought Warren Buffett. However, he couldn't do the whole cigar butt method again. It was outdated. He had to go back in the lab and start thinking. He decided, instead of buying shit companies at very low prices, he was gonna buy the best companies at fair prices. Now, he was buying the best of the best, the behemoths that have been around for so long, you can't even think of a world without them. The blue chips, the grade A companies, think about Coca-Cola, McDonald's, American Express. He was gonna buy shares in these companies and just wait. Yeah, just hold them forever, literally. As Warren Buffett started buying stocks under the new investment firm, its stocks skyrocketed from $11 to over $300 by the late 1970s. He then also started buying insurance companies because they always have a lot of cash on hand, and started using the cash from his insurance companies to buy even more stocks of companies. By the late 1990s, Berkshire Hathaway was trading at over $10,000. And Warren Buffett himself became a billionaire, with a B. From then on, Warren has only gotten richer, becoming the richest man on earth during the 2010s and staying well within the top 10 ever since. However, Warren Buffett is known for being one of the most frugal billionaires out there. He owns no yacht, he still lives in the home he purchased in 1958 for $31,000 in his hometown of Omaha, Nebraska, and can even sometimes be seen driving around in his Cadillac XTS. He openly rejects luxury lifestyles and even criticizes other billionaires for it. He has pledged to donate 99% of his money when he dies to the foundation of his good friend Bill Gates. To be honest, I don't get what the point of all that money is if you aren't going to use it, but hey, you do you, you know? And well, I don't know what more to say about Warren Buffett. Probably at around the 10-minute mark, no? Yeah, anyway, shout out to Tojack8000. Shout out to the person who created Blondes and White Monster. Shout out to Porsche. You know, it would be nice if they could sponsor the next video. And yeah, that was the story of Warren Buffett, I guess.